Hello, you're on the channel Infidelity and Revenge. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can do it right now. Enjoy watching. I waved to the guard like I belonged here and cheerfully wished him good morning as I headed for the elevators. I got in and pressed the third floor button. When the door opened on the count of 3, I quickly stepped out and headed straight for the employee bulletin board. I pulled a piece of paper out of my pocket and pinned it to the board with the buttons and headed for the men's restroom. Once inside, I went into each of the 4 stalls and used a magic marker to write the same thing on all 4 stall walls. I went up the stairs to the 4th floor where I repeated what I had done on the 3rd floor and then walked down the stairs to the lobby. A wide smile shone on my face as I walked out the front door of the building. It has been said over and over again that revenge is a dish best served cold. I never understood that saying. I could never figure out if it meant that you had to wait until the person you wanted revenge on forgot about you, or if it meant that everything you did to get revenge had to be something cold-blooded. If it was the former, then I didn't have the patience to wait that long, and if the latter, well, I guess you could consider what I just did a very cold-blooded act. And that was only half of it. The other half happened when I was sitting at my computer this morning. I figured that all hell would break loose around 10 in the morning, and it was convenient for me to take the day off work, so as soon as I got home, having done my little thing, I picked up the phone. Then, after setting everything up, I grabbed a good book and settled down on the couch to enjoy a nice, leisurely morning. It started the way most things like this start, an unexpected afternoon drive home and finding a familiar car in the driveway. Why would Leland come to my house in the middle of the day? The answer was obvious as soon as I crossed the threshold. Damn it, Joyce, you're so tight. Doesn't Raoul have sex with you anymore? Not often enough, honey, and nowhere near as well as you do. Come on, love, take me. We only have 2 hours before you have to leave. I couldn't believe it. It was a fucking cliché, my best friend was sleeping with my wife. And on top of that she was telling him I wasn't worth a shit in bed. That really hurt. I always thought Joyce and I had a great sex life. 4 or 5 times a week, and more often than not twice in those cases, and then quick sex in the morning before I left for work. I think most men would have burst into the bedroom screaming, ready to kick ass and yell, but I didn't belong to most men. My motto since 8th grade was, don't get mad, get even. I very quietly snuck into my home office and grabbed my mini-dictaphone and a new tape. I crept as close to the bedroom door as I dared, opened the linen closet door and placed the recorder so that it would best pick up the sounds from the bedroom, and then quietly walked out of the house. When I got home that evening, Joyce had made dinner, as usual. She had a fresh bottle of martinis in the refrigerator, and we sat down, had our usual pre-dinner cocktail, and chatted for a while. How was your day, honey? Full of the usual shitty meetings and conference calls. How was yours? Pretty boring. I went grocery shopping this morning, did a bunch of laundry, and then spent the rest of the day reading a book. Anything interesting? No, just one of those cheating stories. The usual story. A wife having a sordid affair with her husband's best friend? Yes, pretty much. After dinner, I helped wash the dishes, went to get my cassette recorder, and then went to my home office to take care of some paperwork. I rewound the tape, pressed the play button, and then listened to my wife and my so-called best friend humiliate me in between fucking on the bed. What interested me most was how they had arranged their next meetings. They planned to meet the day after tomorrow. Tomorrow was a day off, had to get my hair done, you know, and Leland planned to spend 2 nights with Joyce when I went out of town next week. I was wondering how he was going to pull this off without his wife finding out what he was up to. At any rate, judging from their conversation, this wasn't the first time Leland had kept Joyce company when I went out of town. Anyway, with that information in hand, I started planning. It's just amazing, the information you can find on the internet. 2 hours of surfing and I had almost everything I needed. A trip to the electronics stores and a credit card helped me with the rest. I got home in the afternoon when I knew Joyce would be at the barbershop, and then, using the information I'd gotten from the web and my purchases, hooked up the tape recorder to the phone line and hid the voice-activated recorder in the bedroom. The rest would have to wait until the weekend, when Joyce would go to visit her mother and sister. That evening, when I got home, I pulled the tape out of the tape recorder on the phone line and listened to a 10-minute conversation between Leland and Joyce in which they told each other how much they missed each other and could hardly wait until the next day when they could be in each other's arms again. The next day, while Joyce was doing the dishes, I took the tape out of the tape recorder in the bedroom and later, in my office, listened to it. Besides the sounds of sex, I got to listen to the two of them talking about how stupid Leland's wife and I were, about how they had been fucking each other for over a year and I had never learned anything. Leland spoke ill of Anne and said she was disgusting in bed. Joyce blew me away by pointing out all my faults, all lies, I swear, and then told Leland how happy she was to have him in her life. I put the tape away in a safe place and put a new one in the recorder. When I left for my business trip on Monday, my bedroom was wired for both images and sound. I had 3 mini cameras installed that recorded everything that happened in the bedroom and transmitted it to 3 electronically controlled VCRs mounted in a cabinet in my office. A test run showed that as long as it was light in the room, I could get a decent picture. It was an expensive setup, but fortunately I could afford it. Besides, it would pay off in that I wouldn't have to pay out when it came time for a divorce. Motion sensors turned on cameras, and cameras that turned on VCRs. No motion for 5 minutes turned off the cameras, which in turn turned off the VCRs. When my flight took off, I was looking forward to watching some interesting footage when I got home. I would have been very angry if the rig hadn't worked. I waited until 10 p.m. to call Joyce because I knew from recorded conversations that Leland planned to be there by 7. Joyce answered the phone and her voice was a little out of breath. I asked her about it and she said she was riding her exercise bike in the basement and talking to me on the wireless. In the middle of the conversation, I heard a sharp intake of breath and realized without a doubt that the recording would show Leland entering Joyce at this point in the conversation. We talked for another minute or so and then I told her that I loved her and that I missed her and she said the same back and I hung up. The next night's call was almost an exact duplicate of the previous one, except that I said I'd be horny as hell when I got home, and Joyce said that was good because she planned to give me an unforgettable night of lovemaking when I got back. And she did. That night when I got home, I fell asleep completely exhausted. Joyce couldn't keep her hands off me, and I was almost tempted to ask why she thought I was so bad in bed, but then that would have ruined my surprise. The next day I went through the tapes in the 3 VCRs and found that I had some good footage, some really great footage, and a lot of crappy footage, but the most important thing was that I had enough good footage to work with. But I'm not done yet. Not yet. For the next 3 weeks, the VCRs and cassette recorders would just turn on when Leland came over and amused himself with Joyce. On Saturday, when Joyce was visiting her mother and sister, I sat down, went through what I had and started working with it. I had some really great footage of almost professional quality, and by mixing it with just good footage, I ended up with a video almost 2 hours long. I recorded a small cassette tape that I was going to keep for myself. It included a scene where Leland was working Joyce from behind and she was screaming and begging him to never stop. Most of the footage was just plain porn, but what was most important to me was clarity. It was absolutely essential to my plan that I had plenty of footage with a clearly recognizable Leland and a clearly recognizable Joyce. The day I had been waiting for came and I packed copies of everything I had into 2 parcels and then took them to the post office and sent them off. It was Saturday morning, and I requested a 2-day delay from the post office so that the packages would be delivered on Monday. I then went home and put the rest of my plan into action. 2 days later a couple of computer keystrokes and a visit to where Leland worked and it was over. All I had to do was sit back and wait. Joyce came home from her weekly visit to the beauty parlor and was surprised to find me lying on the couch reading a book. She had some groceries with her and went into the kitchen to put them away. "Honey, did you know the phone was disconnected?" "No, honey, I didn't know that. I must have turned it off while I was making myself a sandwich and didn't notice." No sooner had she put the receiver back on the lever than the phone rang. "Hello? What? Are you sure? What are you going to do?" "Okay, I'm going to go take a look." "Where was that again?" I heard her come out of the kitchen and head into the living room where we have the computer. About 2 minutes passed and then I heard a sharp scream. I smiled to myself as Joyce watched her own porn video. 2 minutes later she burst into the room. "You bastard! What have you done? I made you famous, sweetheart. By now your name should be on the rumor mill, at least among Leland's co-workers. It's probably unfortunate that he works for the company his father-in-law owns, but hell. According to him, and was a worthless wife anyway, so he won't miss her when she's gone. And I doubt he'd want to keep his job and run into his former father-in-law every day. On the other hand, he may not have any say in whether he stays or goes. It would probably depend on how his father-in-law feels when he opens the website and sees what Leland is saying about Anne. I looked at my watch, and should be opening her package right now, at least if the post office delivers it to Ann Street on time. A package? What package? Nothing much, just copies of all the recordings I've made of you and Leland over the last 3 weeks. My God. Raoul, how could you do this to me? It was easy, Joyce. All I had to do was remember you stabbing me in the back with the jerk who was supposed to be my best friend. The worst is yet to come for you. I'm guessing it won't be until 6:30 or 6 tonight. The phone rang, and I said, or maybe sooner. Hello. Oh, hi, Mom. What? I didn't hear another word, so I got up and followed her into the kitchen. She stood there with her face white as chalk while her mother talked on the other end of the wire. Is something wrong? I asked innocently. How could you send this to my parents in a package as an anniversary gift? Oh, come on, honey. At least I remembered their anniversary. What else did you do? Posted your website address on the wall of every shitty establishment where Leland works, along with the message, "For a nice time, call Joyce on the phone," and wrote down your cell phone number. I also posted the same thing on all the bulletin boards there. Let's see, what else did I do? Oh yeah. I sent an email to everyone in your address book. I wrote them, "Hey, look at me new," and of course there were attachments. I wish I could be there to see your grandmother's face when she sees you begging Leland to fuck you in the ass. She stared at me for almost a full minute and then said, "How can you hate me so much?" It was easy, Joyce. All I had to do was watch the tapes and listen to what you said about me when you were with Leland. Speaking of Leland. Anne's probably already kicked him out the door. Call him, maybe he'll let you live with him. What, why would you say something like that? Why in God's name would I want to live with that jackass? I don't know, Joyce, but you're not staying here. I took you at your word. I'm stupid, I'm no good in bed, and I'm not that good of a husband. I've got it all on tape, Joyce, so pack up your junk and get out of here. Just then the phone rang again. You better answer the phone. It's probably your boyfriend who wants to cry on your chest. Joyce answered the phone and then held it out to me. "This is for you." I took the phone and found it was Anne. I received an interesting package in the mail today. It didn't have a return address on it, but the contents made me think of you for some reason. Do you know anything about it? My bad. I'm sorry if it upset you, but I had an uncontrollable urge to get a little revenge. Don't apologize. I've suspected for some time that asshole was cheating on me, but I've never been able to prove it. Thanks, I owe you one. What are you doing on your end? I looked at Joyce and said, "She'll be out of here in an hour." I'm surprised you're giving her that much time. All I did was call the asshole and tell him not to bother coming home, ever. My dad called me an hour ago and wanted to know what I wanted from him, so I told him, and Leland is now among the unemployed. Anyway, I owe you one. When the dust clears, I'll let you buy me a drink. Deal. I'll talk to you later. I hung up the phone and looked at Joyce. Are you still here? Thanks for watching. And don't forget to rate the video and leave your comment.